If you search something in ChatGPT, like, hey, where can I record a podcast? It'll make recommendations, and those are coming from Foursquare. So that's place data. So you guys are building the world's place data that powers things like ChatGPT. Today, we're going to talk about Foursquare's place data. And so I have Vikram, the CTO of Foursquare here. We're going to talk about open data, what a place engine is, how agents and humans work together to create place data. So it's going to be really exciting. Vikram, thank you for being here. You're the CTO at Foursquare. Would love to hear, what does Foursquare do these days? I just checked in with the Swarm app at the restaurants we just met. Is that still what you guys do?
Yeah, first of all, glad to be here, Lukas. And Foursquare, most people remember that as the app which popularized the concept of check-ins, and still there is a loyal fan base which still uses the Swarm app, and we have some exciting updates on Swarm a little in a few weeks. We started off as the consumer app, and then in 2020, we actually pivoted to enterprise. So right now, the Foursquare product portfolio is built on top of two foundational assets. One is places, which is we have a robust data set that contains all the real world location, most comprehensive POI data set. And then we have moments, which is our understanding of how people are visiting these places. Building upon these, we have various solutions and APIs for developers, analytics solutions, and all that. So we have places APIs and an SDK that allows people to build location-centric experiences within their mobile apps. We have visualization platform called Foursquare Studio, which is built on top of Kepler.gl. And we have ATIC solutions. Our attribution solution allows customers to understand the impact of foot traffic. And we recently augmented that solution to also include the impact on sales. So that's what we do these days.
Wow. And you're not even mentioning all the things you released this year. So I've just went through the blog this year, and you've released a new place engine. You released the placemaker tools. You open sourced your data. It feels like Foursquare is releasing something every month. What's happening? Did you guys change something, how you operate?
So I think for a company that has a long history like Foursquare, once in a while we have to go back to understanding what our core thesis is and how do we operate in a real startup mode. So 6 months ago, Gary asked me to take on this role. For context, I joined Foursquare as an engineer 3 years ago, have been driving most of the technical strategy around places, our geospatial intelligence platform. And only 6 months ago, I took on this role as a CTO. When Gary first entrusted me with this role, his intent was to build engineer or a builder-centric organization. And what that means is software development is changing a lot these days with the advent of AI tools. So some of the processes we used to have in the past and some of the functions we used to have in the past to orchestrate between engineers and the customers are no longer needed. So in our case, what we did was that we eliminated the product functions. We elevated a lot of hands-on engineers as tech leads, and we completely killed all the meetings, whether it was one-on-ones, all the agile ceremonies like daily stand-ups, sprint retrospectives, planning sessions. We embraced async communication a lot, and it was an experiment. Fortunately, I think our team embraced it, and we've seen significant gains in productivity. And that is also visible externally with all our launches. We have launched more things in the last 6 months than we did in the last 2 years. So that's what changed.
You guys launched a lot. And one of the biggest launches I've seen is you're now powering the POIs in ChatGPT. So if you search something in ChatGPT, like, hey, where can I record a podcast? It'll make recommendations, and those are coming from Foursquare. So that's place data. You guys are building the world's place data that powers things like ChatGPT. Can you tell us a little bit how you do that?
Yeah. Our ChatGPT integration is based on our Place Search API, which is built on top of our Places dataset. Places is our foundational asset. And Foursquare has been building this Places dataset for more than a decade now. When Foursquare first started as the first real-world social networking app, which incentivized people to go out of their homes and check into locations, in that process, built a very comprehensive dataset of the real-world places. And Places dataset is one such unique geospatial dataset that it can only be created in the digital realm through humans and curated by humans.
Absolutely. A business owner needs to enter about the business or a person, while for roads, you can look at aerial imagery, where phones move.
Yes.
So in my opinion, one of the hardest assets to create.
Yeah. Back in 2015, when Foursquare apps were popular, we built this whole crowdsourcing engine and we created a very comprehensive data set for places. And if you look at what is a parallel of the system, you can think of OSM in the open source world as the equivalent of this crowdsourcing system. Then the Foursquare app usage waned over the years and we pivoted to enterprise. And in doing so, we also did a bunch of acquisition. One of the key acquisition we made was Factual. And Factual had a completely different way of building this places data set. So Factual goes through all the digital sources and sources data from other contributors like listing syndicators or other trusted data sources and conflates them and builds an authoritative version of the places data set. So we had like this two different systems, and the Factual system is actually representative of how most companies which do places build their own data set. And in the open source world, that is the equivalent of Overture, how the Overture builds its places data set. So you asked what is new about our places engine, like, because we've been at this for a while, right? Like when we first did the integration of these two systems, the Factual system and the Foursquare system, our attempt at integrating the system was to take the Foursquare data, which was mostly human sourced, and conflate it as another source into the Factual system. It made sense technically. It was the easiest path and all that. We got some initial gains. We saw increase in volume and a bunch of other things, but we quickly hit a roadblock. I think about a year or a year and a half ago, we started realizing that we are very limited in our capability to improve the quality of the places data set in this new model. And the reason for that is in this system, the only way to improve the data set is by bringing on more sources. And over time, you run out of sources. And also, one of the foundational principle in this new system is that you take two mediocre data set, you apply some algorithms, and the output is a high quality data set. It sounds great on paper, right? Like, and it sounds true on paper. But what we found in practice is that you cannot achieve the level of quality that you would expect by conflating multiple mediocre sources. So we went back to the drawing board in terms of how we do this, because we were getting a lot of complaints from our customers in terms of how do we improve quality in a targeted way. So we went back to the drawing board. What we thought was, at the core, we had a crowdsourcing system that has been tested at scale. Yeah. But we had limited human input because of our Foursquare app usage trended over the years. The question was, how do we take the human input and amplify it? And with the advent of new technologies, that was now possible with LLM agents and all that. So what we thought was we can augment this crowdsourcing system to bring agents and humans on the same plane. So how is this different from the Factual system? In those systems, you conflate all these data sets, you have the places data set, and you apply models at scale. And you look at like aggregate metrics. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. You take a look at a source. You look at like how often is this source right on this attribute and then bump it up. But if the source is only right 80% of the time, that won't be caught. And as a result, any error made by that source will get propagated.
How do you know it's right without having a human ever check?
Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is when you conflate multiple sources, all these sources are not clean. Like if you go to all these sources scraped from the websites and all that. So there is a lot of self-reinforcing happening, right? Like to give an example, we work with several mobility providers or mapping customers. They take our data set and then they conflate it with other sources. But we may already have conflated that data set in our data set. So what ends up happening is whatever algorithm you apply, it amplifies the most repeated source, not necessarily the most accurate source. So we need this validation at a per POI level, right? Like or a per place record level. So by bringing agents and humans on the same plane, when you have an algorithm modeled as an agent proposing something, or when you have a website where you saw a change on an attribute of a place and proposing a change on behalf of that website, we have to corroborate that with other humans or other agents, right? And in doing so, you get this validation at a per place level. And we also keep track of the entire history of the place. We almost treat a place like a living entity where you're continuously editing it, all that. So when there is some issue that we discover, we can typically send it back. We can typically roll back to that, or we can identify issues at the source. One example I always like to give is like we ingested one source which had like Austrian post offices marked as German. And in the old system, that would have propagated all the way to the customers until someone complained. In this case, like we had our placemakers identify that issue and flag to us, and we were able to roll back that and also fix the source. So that kind of nuanced validation is what made this Places engine possible.
So you built an engine both humans can go and map with Swarm, with your placemaker tools and contribute. And anyone can also build an agent. You build agents, us at Reprompt, we build agents and contribute. And then you resolve conflicts somehow. Can you tell us a little bit how these conflicts get resolved? So what happens when one of Reprompt's agents suggests an address and it actually has changed? There's no digital evidence for that, but the human knows.
Yeah.
How does this get caught?
So first, our crowdsourcing system is built on this concept of trust, right? Like each user provides inputs through a consensus-based mechanism. It gets accepted or rejected. But as you get more accurate about certain inputs, we assign a rank to each of the placemaker, and we go from what we call as an apprentice level all the way to 10.
So both humans have to level up and the agents have to level up.
So when we first integrated the third-party agent or our own agents, we had to go through the same gradation. Like you start very low, and then you earn trust by providing more edits that are accurate, and then you grade up. And also, when you do something wrong, you're penalized or sometimes banned, and you downgrade. So that way, we are containing the damage that can be done and quickly detecting those and fixing the places. So that's where opening up this to the larger community is going to be immensely beneficial.
I think that's pretty unique. So I've been spending like 15 years in OpenStreetMap and have been going around and mapping restaurants and contributing there. And what happens there, if you do an import with an AI, it gets blocked.
Yeah.
Because the humans take precedence. Now, you build a system where both humans and AI can interact, but there's also Overture.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you guys decide to go build your own platform versus contributing to Overture? Now we sort of have three systems, OSM, Foursquare, Overture.
It was an interesting choice. I think just to talk through the journey, when we first start thinking about how to solve this places problem, we assumed Overture is going to solve the problem of creating the base data set. Our thesis was that like we want to build services and add on functionality, and that's how we wanted to stay relevant. Our hypothesis was that if we fast forward 3 years, places data is going to be commoditized. And then we engaged in conversations with Overture, and what we found was that the kind of integration model that was suggested was akin to how we did the Foursquare integration with Factual. And we know the roadblocks that are going to come into way, hard-earned lessons and all that stuff. So we felt like we could actually accelerate creation of a commoditized and comprehensive places data set on our system. Places is often treated as a data problem, but it's more, do you have the right system to be able to create that comprehensive data set? And what we feel is like we have a very compelling and unique system that we have built where agents and humans can interact with each other and generate this data set.
And then on top of this, you made an incredible move. You took your data that you used to sell and you just made it free.
Yeah.
So now you can contribute in your system that data, you made it free. Why did you decide to make it free? How are you going to make money?
So what we have made free is the core attributes of a place, like the name, address, location, contact information, and all that. Those are about 22 attributes on a place. And we have about 60 to 80 attributes, which are photos about a place, tips about a place, or brand mappings, like which of the stores are Starbucks stores and all that stuff, right? Like which are still commercial, we sell it under the commercial tier. We have APIs that sit on top of this data. We have very unique APIs, not just place search. We have something called place snap, which is given a lat long, we are able to accurately map which location you are at in. I think this is the technology behind our Swarm app. When as you are moving through locations and stop somewhere, it will detect where you are. And then we also have personalized place search APIs. So that's another avenue for us. Then the third one is also that like we have committed to the community that we will update our open source data every month. It's been 3 months and we've been doing that at a pretty good cadence. But there are customers who need more time sensitive needs. Like they need to get the data either in real time or every day. For those, we also put them under the commercial tier. The other thing is like we have opened up the placemaker tools wherein anyone can go and add or update places. We also are working on creating an enterprise version of those tools where companies with these human workers, they can embed their human workers into this system to provide the same inputs. Like you can think of drivers of the mobility partners or human labelers that most mapping companies work with. So we want to create a space where everyone contributes to the base data set and benefits from it. And there is no membership fee. You can put whatever human workforce you have, pay us for the software, and then use those tools to improve that.
And I think what's really brilliant about this as a business that might want to use place data is that you can safely use it, right? It's free. You can always use it, whether you use Foursquare or not. And you can contribute to it, make it better. Foursquare does.
Yeah.
And you can get to keep those improvements, and you get to benefit from all the other improvements.
Yeah.
All with not a restrictive license like ODBL or something like that. And I think that's really brilliant in the age of AI, where it's so much easier to start adding new attributes.
Yeah.
So one thing that really excites me about what Vikram and Foursquare is doing is we're really in this golden age of open data. You know, you've had Facebook and Microsoft open up parts of place and road data to start competing with Google. And by Foursquare opening up the place data, I really encourage everyone to check it out, because now you have like 3 amazing alternatives. You have OpenStreetMap data that you can use, you have Foursquare data that you can use with lots of services on top, and you have Overture. So it's never been a better time to go and do site selection, to do location intelligence queries in your database. And so I'm very excited about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, and other reason we did not join Overture is that like it creates a confusion for the community, in the sense that we provided these tools to the community to go and edit and update, and we are very transparent about how those edits are updated or rejected. If we contribute that into Overture, and then those get conflated with other sources without feedback loops back into our system, or a tight integration with our system, somebody may contribute that data and you would never know whether that data would show up in the end system or not. That's one of the things also. We want to be more an open community as well.
Yeah. So it's like the best of OpenStreetMap with the best of things like Overture. So with this, I want to switch a little bit to agents and how that changes things. So for a long time, you have people check in to create data, and then the only other way of gathering data is by scraping data. And now with LLMs coming along, I think you guys made the leap and said, hey, we know that agents can do a lot of the work that humans can do, and so we're going to build a platform for that. And one thing I'm really excited is Reprompt is part of that platform. So Vikram opened up those APIs, we use Foursquare data, and so we built an agent that is on that placemaker tools. It gets tasks that humans are working on. It decides what to do by going on social media, by going on websites, all those tasks that are maybe a little bit annoying for humans, and it completes them and works alongside humans. And then if it messes up, it gets downvoted. If it does it correct, it gets more and more tasks. Yeah, tell me a little bit. You have this vision for an ecosystem of agents and humans working together. Like if you extrapolate this, how could this look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Lukas, if you remember when you came to us like 4 months ago, I guess now, saying that like, hey, if you give us a CSV, we will augment that with more data, and then you can use that to enrich your data set. And when we talked through the initial integration, I think what we ended up with was much different than where we started, right? The idea was that LLMs are getting better at automating a lot of the mechanical work. Like if you look at even in the places world, even in our engine at this point in time, there are 3 different kinds of workforces that can contribute to the platform. One is human workforces who are sitting in a call center somewhere and then just like looking on the web and trying to adjust it and using their own local knowledge to improve the places data. There is apps which provide on-the-ground verification. So we are actually working on integrations with certain apps who send people to specific locations to actually correct the information about places. And the third is agents. The thing that is interesting about agents is you can automate a lot of things that a human can do at a much cheaper rate. But again, I do not want to underestimate the value of human input in the same case. So we need to have agents continuously calibrated. Where Reprompt played an interesting role in our platform is like bringing the social element of it, like looking at the social signals of a place, whether this is real or like has there been any recent interaction on this certain social media channel to determine if the place is open or not. So those kinds of things are actually pretty compelling. And it would take a lot of time for a human to scrape through those many channels to get that information. And the way we integrated Reprompt, as we talked about, is also that you had to earn your level.
Well, I think one of the incredible things of going to a system and just acting like a human, just like a human on Foursquare, you get to do tasks, you get to see what values are proposed, and you get to decide. Now, what's super valuable is you get feedback back from the humans, whether they agree and disagree. And you can use those same labels to do reinforcement learning with human feedback. And so the agent gets better. So for us, this was incredibly attractive for building an agent, for continuously making it better. So that was one very attractive thing about it. At the same time, we can be confident that we can do very new technology and immediately roll it out, and the system keeps it safe.
The reason we are also excited about the partnership with Reprompt is that when we first wrote this blog post about, hey, we built this system that brings agents and humans together, it felt a little buzzword, like everyone is rallying on this concept of an agent, and it felt like we were trying to ride that wave.
It's actually happening. It's like a human. It goes and it votes, and it has a username. I think it's called Reprompt. We're going to give it some other catchy names, and it earns a level just like a human.
I think one thing I would say about our system is like you will never beat the human, because we're going to cap what level an agent can make. Because one of the things is we have a very active community of our placemakers who are at level 10, who take a lot of pride in keeping this data set in sync. I mean, to be honest, like we haven't done a great job of valuing their input over the years, and we are changing that now. But what we get from them is also a lot of local context. Sometimes it's colloquial, sometimes it's cultural. What may seem as profanity in a broader sense, maybe some cultural context embedded in it. So we cannot always, someone sitting in a lab or like someone sitting in a computer just writing some regexes or some prompt engineering can never get the context of someone interacting directly with those places. So when we first released the places data set, like there was a lot of places data quality is an evolving thing. And we had like some profanity issues and all that. We went through that data set and we found some of them are actually real places. So the question is, hey, do we filter them out because it didn't meet certain rules? Or we should be more cautious about like how do we do this, or flag something for more human input or something like that. I think that's what we are trying to do. And I think in this system always, like, I think we want to value and prioritize human input.
Thank you, Vikram. So Foursquare is building this amazing ecosystem where both agents and humans can collaborate. And I myself are very excited to be an agent with Reprompt on that ecosystem that gets to contribute, then gets to get the learnings from the humans and get better and better. And very excited how Foursquare open sourced the whole data set. So now anyone building with location data at scale or building a product can use it for free with very permissive licensing. And I think it's a huge step forward for the world. And so thank you, Vikram, for making that possible.
Yeah, thank you.